The JWL Sports, where we review all the best sports clips from around the world. Now you're probably wondering, why should I watch over here instead of anywhere else? And that's because over there, they don't care about what you have to say. They say this all the time, they talk down to us, they think we're just a bunch of clowns on YouTube, Twitter. But I think it's the opposite. I think we know exactly what we're talking about. So I read every single comment. So if you think what I'm saying is the most ridiculous thing you've ever heard, let me know in the comments below. If you think what I'm saying is the most amazing thing, then definitely please let me know. Either way, let's get into some discussions, let's get into some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I would absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of, and I think we're well on our way to doing it. So without further ado, let's get to it. We're watching a clip of The Herd with Colin Cowherd, doing his way too early predictions. This is always interesting to me because obviously it's always fun to make kind of these like ridiculous, absurd predictions based off of very limited information. Especially because we don't know what's going to happen in the draft. We don't know what type of offseason moves are going to be made. So you just really have no idea. But I actually do have some pretty strong thoughts on this one, and I'm curious to see where he lands on a few of these. So I am definitely curious. So let's go from here.
It's the way too early predictions. I looked at schedules. I'll give you an example in the AFC. Houston doesn't make it. What? Now they have to play with expectations. Schedule is significantly harder. And oh, by the way, Anthony Richardson and Trevor Lawrence are both healthy again. So that's a team I like. I don't think Houston bottoms out. Sophomore slump. That's a team. So remember, per season, last decade, 6 new teams make the playoffs. So all you fanboys out there, well, we made it 6 new teams. That's the average for a decade. So I went through it this morning, and I ended up with 6. AFC. Shocker, I'm taking the best quarterbacks overwhelmingly. I have the Bills, the Bengals, the Colts, the Chiefs winning their division. I have the Ravens, Jags, Chargers as wild cards. So the Bills have won their divisions 4 straight years. The Bengals have had double-digit wins and led their division before Burrow gets hurt. I think they'll rebound. I think Shane Steichen's as good a young offensive coach as the league has had in years. They've got $60 million in cap space, and I like a lot of their young players. They almost got to the playoffs with Gardner Minshew. Anthony Richardson getting hurt in a weird way as a break, because now he could learn from the sidelines. I have talked to Chris Ballard. They love that kid. And I'll take Mahomes. By the way, my wild card teams are quarterbacked by Lamar Jackson, Trevor Lawrence, and Justin Herbert. I'm taking the best quarterback. I don't know if Anthony Richardson is, but it's a wonky division. I look at their schedule. I look at Steichen. I look at their cap space. Oh, by the way, the Jags started 8-3 before Trevor Lawrence got hurt. They also hired a defensive coordinator, Ryan Nielsen from Atlanta, who did the best job with Atlanta's defense in a long time. And the Chargers, by the way, lost 7 games by 3 or less. Even with Brandon Staley, which was man overboard, they were in a lot of games. Now Harbaugh gets his star quarterback. So I've got 4 new teams: Bengals, Colts, Jags, Chargers. Nothing against Miami, but Tua was completely healthy this year. Think that's going to happen again next?
Well, okay, there's a few things, because he's saying these teams are all healthy, or these players are all healthy this year, or the coming season, and then he then points out, well, Tua was healthy all last season. Do you think he's going to be healthy this season? And it's like, well, you could make the same argument for the Ravens and Lamar Jackson, or Joe Burrow and the Bengals, right? You're just assuming that he's going to be healthy next season. He's always been kind of banged up and had those issues. So you really don't know that. But one of the things that stands out to me, 2 of the things that really stands out to me, is that we know Colin is so high on Sean Payton as a head coach, and he's a wizard, this, that. He was like, he's going to make, Russell Wilson be what he was before, and then when it wasn't, he's like, it's not working. And then when it started to seem like it was working, he goes, see, I told you guys, it's working. It just takes some time. And then when it wasn't working again, he went back to being like, this is just not working. So it was just interesting that he essentially has King Sean Payton, from his viewpoint, as not making the playoffs now, back-to-back seasons. That's interesting to me. I don't know. I guess the real question is how good of a coach do you think Sean Payton is? Because the reality is, if Drew Brees was really as good as he is as a quarterback, then why did they only make it to they only get there to one Super Bowl? I know they only won one Super Bowl. I think that they've only been to one. So you'd have to say that that's kind of underachieving then, if Sean Payton really is that great of a coach. Now, if we say that Sean Payton is a great coach and can do a lot, then we know he's not going to be sitting around. Whether that means that they're drafting a quarterback or they're going to try to make a play at another quarterback, who that might be, I have no idea. But I just maybe you don't necessarily bet against the Broncos in that light. But again, I don't have too strong of opinions for that because it really comes down to what do they do at the quarterback position. That's the way I kind of look at it. The other way is the Packers, the Jets with Aaron Rodgers. Now we know Colin is also not very high on Aaron Rodgers and the Jets. Now I stand by this statement. Now again, the big question mark is how good is Aaron Rodgers going to be when he comes back? Not only just because of the Achilles, but just because he's older now, right? And he has a whole year off, so we just don't know what type of quarterback he's going to be. You can't predict it. You really, really can't. We can't use Brady as a frame of reference or any other quarterback. We just have no idea. Everyone's individual in that regard. But if he comes back and is like 80% of Aaron, 90% of Aaron, or obviously more, the Jets are going to be a good team. They really are. Think about they literally competed with the Chiefs, with Zach Wilson. Okay, they competed and should have won that game against the Super Bowl winning Chiefs. Their defense is the real deal. Their offense was a disaster with Zach Wilson. So if you put Aaron there, a healthy Aaron's going to make moves. And Aaron has an ego and a lot of pride. Do you think that's how he really wants to go out? I don't think so. He hears every single word. I mean, seriously, the guy seemingly hears everything from random people on Twitter and YouTube to people like me, I guess, to obviously the Colin Cowherds of the world. This is not how he wants to go out. So he is going to bring it, do everything he possibly can. I'm curious to see what type of moves the Jets make. Do they beef up their offensive line? What do they do? Their defense seems to be pretty legit and ready to go. And so now it's just tinkering the offense. And again, a lot of people just kind of counted Aaron out, and the Jets for that matter, because he obviously got injured, and then the Jets didn't do well with Zach Wilson. So they're like, see, I told you. And it's like, well, there is not I told you. Because Aaron Rodgers didn't play. So if Aaron Rodgers can actually play and be healthy and is just 80% of what he was, I think the Jets are in a good position to at least, be competitive, make it in the wild card. And again, the problem is I think the Bills will be there. I think the Bengals, if they're healthy, will be there, and the Ravens will be there, and the Chiefs. And again, this is always weird because the way how the divisions work, right? You can't just pick the best team. So it's like, what team will be the odd man out? Is it possible that the Chiefs take a step back? Is it possible? They were unraveling at the seams. They had a lot of issues, the Chiefs. Make no mistake about it. Yes, they pulled it off and got a Super Bowl. But Travis Kelce was increasingly becoming more hostile and having more problems on the bench more times than he ever has throughout his entire career. Patrick Mahomes was getting worked up, yelling more times than he ever has. There were legit issues, okay? Was it Rice or Pacheco? I forget, was yelling at Patrick Mahomes. They were getting in a fight on the sideline of the Super Bowl, okay? And the fact that they won, it kind of hides that a little bit. But make no mistake about it, the Chiefs are not this big, bad juggernaut of a team. They were able to win the Super Bowl, obviously, and were able to make do. But the chances of them being able to do that again, I don't know. Especially now if the Chargers are actually, competitive enough where they're going to make the wild card, as well as, say, the Ravens and the Jaguars and the Bengals and the Bills, then those are teams that are going to be playing the Chiefs. The Chiefs are going to have a tough schedule, right? They just won the Super Bowl. So that means they might, and they didn't have a particularly difficult schedule last season, surprisingly, especially because of key injuries. More than anything was the injuries and the time that they played. So there's real reason to believe that, let's say Harbaugh can actually get the Chargers right within this first season, which is a tough task. There's a lot of work to do. But if he is, who's to say that the Chargers don't win that division? And again, if the Broncos make a move, maybe the Broncos, draft a quarterback, and that quarterback ends up being like a Stroud, where they're able to just hit the ground running right away because they'll also have an easier schedule. Who's to say that they don't eke out a division? The Chiefs could have not won the division. They could have been fighting for a wild card spot. Absolutely. If you go back and look at how the games unfolded, they got very lucky that they played the Bengals with a backup quarterback. Okay, and they got lucky that the Broncos, didn't beat them twice. I mean, all of those things add up. So who's to say that the Chiefs will be on the right side of luck this time around? Again, you never want to bet against Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, or the reigning Super Bowl champions, but it is a legitimate thing to kind of consider. The Jaguars are an interesting team because they started off so hot and good, and they were looking good, but they were 8-3, but it always seemed very fragile to me. As noted, when they went down one of their wide receivers, like the Jaguars started spiraling, but then it really kind of took out, Trevor Lawrence literally got like 4 different injuries in 4 weeks. So that's like, it's kind of hard to hold his feet to the fire in that regard. But I don't know. It's definitely going to be an interesting season when you look at these teams. I'm trying to think of any other teams, right? I guess like he mentioned the Texans. I don't know. But let's just jump to the NFC.
Also, still don't love their O-line. Houston, I like them a lot. Schedule's tougher. Now you're playing with expectations. Trevor Lawrence healthy. Now, look at the Texans' opponents. There's some tough ones there. Cowboys on the road, Chiefs on the road. Packers, I think, are excellent on the road. You face Aaron Rodgers, and he's healthy early on the road. Home games, well, good luck. Lions are really good. Ravens are really good. Dolphins score a lot of points. Bills score a lot of points. That's a tough schedule for the Houston Texans. And they still are in a rebuild. They're still trying to rebuild that roster. So I like Houston. I think they pull back a game or two. All right, let's go to the NFC. I have 2 new playoff teams. Commanders win their division. Packers win their division.
This guy, I like Colin, and we're going to let him talk, but I just love how he goes from, the Eagles are this unbelievable, like the 49ers are a wild card team. The Commanders now are winning the division. Cowboys are in the wild card. The Lions are such a good team, but they're a wild card team. It's like the Falcons. I mean, this is actually pretty bonkers to me. I'm going to let him explain, and then I will pick it apart.
Falcons win their division. Rams win their division. Wild cards are Cowboys, Lions, Niners. Why Commanders? $75 million in cap space. Love Dan Quinn and Cliff Kingsbury as a staff. I think the Eagles and the Cowboys, because of age and drama, are vulnerable. I think the Commanders, we have a surprise team every year in the league. I think they get Drake May. I think Drake May's like Justin Herbert as a comp. Played in a simple college offense and will be better than people think immediately. Herbert was, C.J. Stroud was. I think Drake May is that guy this year. Packers, I love their young offensive personnel. Don't like it, I love it. They're kids, and they went into Dallas and hammered the Cowboys. I thought LaFleur had his best job as a head coach, did his best job. Falcons, I think they land Russell Wilson or Kirk Cousins. Top 5 offensive line, nice pieces. I think they get a veteran in there for a couple of years, and Atlanta wins.
Russell Wilson?
Kind of a weak division. Rams, second youngest team that made the playoffs to the Packers. I think one of the great coaches in football. They've got 11 draft picks and about $30 million of cap space. I think the Rams are in the Super Bowl bubble potentially.
I mean, this makes not a lot of sense to me because, again, the Falcons are up there because of, potentially getting Russell Wilson. And it's like, if Sean Payton, again, who he loves as a coach, couldn't make Russell Wilson work or be successful with that, why are the Falcons then going to be competitive with that? So that just doesn't make any sense. The Commanders, okay, I could understand because the defense will be good under Quinn. And I actually also like their OC, who, Cliff Kingsbury. I was thinking that the Eagles should have went out and got him. But so I do think that can be a good combination for sure. I think when you're drafting a quarterback, though, you just don't know, especially if I think that's, the Commanders are going to be a better run franchise than they have been in years. But at the same time, if you trust the Eagles, which I personally do, Harry Roseman, the GM, always makes moves. He's considered to be one of the brightest, best GMs in the NFL. No, not even an opinion, right? That's just a fact. The dude makes moves. And so the Eagles are very upset about how this past season, unfolded. And yes, they're getting older, but that wasn't necessarily the problem last season. It was a little bit. It had some of the issues, and I believe the GM will do what needs to be done and will make the draft and make offseason moves that he's always done. He's consistently done that. So that's why it's not a far reach here. He's consistently done that. And now they went out and got a true defensive coordinator and a true offensive coordinator. And so the team should be better. They just should be. And so they already were able to somehow manage their way into the playoffs this last season. And I didn't think that the Eagles were that good last season. So I'm not being a homer here. I called out the Eagles plenty and said it was fool's gold and said that they easily could have had a losing record. So that's why I even said that it was actually kind of embarrassing that the Chiefs lost to the Eagles. Or that the Cowboys lost to the Eagles, that it was never really that, those things weren't impressive. So what I'll say is that I think that the Eagles will be significantly different, ready to go, and I think they will win the division. And I think the Cowboys are the team that is actually the most in trouble, because I don't see how they're taking a step forward, right? I can only see actually how they're going to take a step backwards. I don't see how they're possibly going to be able to move forward. Their schedule is going to be harder, so they'll be playing more difficult teams, and I think there's a good likelihood that they can get punched in the mouth and just not have a good season. And that is if you think that the Commanders can be really good. I think the Cowboys would still be in the wild card unless the Commanders draft the quarterback and it's a home run and he's just brilliant right off the bat, right? Like the Stroud or Herbert even rookie season. Then I could see the argument of all right, they're going to make moves and hit the ground running. That I can see. The Packers, I think, is great. The Rams, the Falcons, I don't know, man. That might be a bridge too far for me. Again, I thought Baker Mayfield was great and had this whole return to excellence and stuff like that. What about that? And again, the 49ers now, are they getting worse? Because they've been consistently amazing for the last few years, and now they're getting worse, and I'm not sure how or why. I really don't. Even if you don't think Purdy's the most amazing quarterback ever, you have to imagine that Purdy's going to get 5% better than last season, I would have to imagine. So I don't know. And I think the Lions will be better. It's tough. It's definitely kind of condensed there with the Packers and the Lions and the 49ers. And I think the Rams will be good too. Puka Nacua, they know. But again, they're also getting older. Stafford's older. Kupp is not the same. Aaron Donald, those players are also getting older. So, that's tricky. You don't know if they're all going to stay healthy either. And it's always hard because you just don't know health. You really, really don't. Christian McCaffrey could get injured week 2, and then there goes the 49ers. So you just don't know. But it is kind of weird to see the 49ers as the wild card team there. The Falcons winning their division and the Commanders now. It just seems a little inconsistent of what opinions were presented before as they are right now. But like I said, it is always a little bit more difficult to predict between the division winner and wild card. I think it's easier to predict who's going to be in the playoffs in general, but less so who actually wins the division, because, is it the Packers or the Lions? Because you also just don't know what the schedule looks like, right? That's also kind of the thing. Or some of those wonky games like when Detroit plays the Chiefs, they could have easily have lost that game. They won that game and stole that game, but they could have technically lost that game, and then, maybe now they're not the division winner. So you just don't know how those types of games unfold next season. Do the 49ers get to play the Commanders in week 2 when their rookie quarterback doesn't really know what's going on just yet? Or do they play the 49ers? Do the 49ers and Commanders play each other in week 12 while that team is rolling and they finally unlocked whoever they ended up drafting, right? So much is timing as well. Are they playing in Africa or wherever they're playing these days right now, right? I don't know if that's even been announced. I know the Eagles were announced playing in some foreign country. Don't know where though. So you just don't know. You really, really don't. And that's why, to me, some of the fine tuning of who's going to win the division versus who's going to be in the wild card is a lot more difficult. But I think I'm not seeing the Falcons. Maybe if they get Kirk Cousins, I can maybe see that, because I do believe Kirk Cousins is a good quarterback. Not Russell Wilson. I'm not seeing that one bit. But yeah, I don't really know if the Cowboys, again, if the Commanders are, the Cowboys depend, they make the playoffs depending on if the Commanders actually right the ship. If they do, then I don't think the Cowboys are in it, and I think the Eagles are in it. But if the Commanders aren't able to right the ship, and they're kind of going through rookie QB growing pains, then I think it'll be the Cowboys and Eagles duking it out for the division. And then I would give the edge to the Eagles, because I think the Eagles made legitimate moves to progress their team forward, and I don't think the Cowboys have. In fact, I think the Cowboys could only take a step back, quite honestly. They don't really have a lot of excuses for why they failed. The Eagles have plenty of excuses, plenty of reasons. So that's the way I see it. I would absolutely love to hear your thoughts on this one. Who do you think is going to win the division? Who do you think is going to be in the wild card for both AFC and NFC? Do you think the Chiefs are just going to roll on back to the Super Bowl? And how about the 49ers? Do you think it's crazy that the 49ers are now a wild card team? Would love to hear your thoughts on this one. Please let me know in the comments below. Please don't forget to subscribe. As I said, we are building an amazing community here, and I would absolutely love to see you part of it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much, and see you next time.